I saw a clip. I didn't see the speech or the context, but I saw a clip.
Okay, so there is a section of a Trump speech where he says, in 4 years, you don't have to vote again. And many, many clips stop there.
Mm-hmm.
The next sentence is, we'll have it fixed so good you won't have to vote again. So, in a world of cheap fakes and stuff like that. But it just seems to me that on top of that as well, we also had, who was the guy that called out Elon Musk recently? It was Gavin Newsom, said that he wanted legislation to stop AI manipulated speech going on.
Right.
You go, well, like if selective editing is able to achieve the same outcome, is there something that's particularly special about chopping together words that somebody did say versus actually creating from, an AI GPT something that somebody didn't say? It's just, it doesn't surprise me that the general public are becoming kind of despondent. And I think one of the things that you get is not people really being convinced by any one narrative, but just sort of holding their hands up and going, I just don't trust anything now. I'm just confused and kind of a bit nihilistic, and I'm disengaged. And I think that you're seeing, especially, I know that this is the fact, young men, specifically Gen Z men, are more likely to say that no particular political pursuit, no particular political issue is of great importance to them than ever before.
Interesting.
So they're just very, very sort of stepped back. This is coinciding with a movement away from left-leaning beliefs amongst men that are Gen Z as well. I had the guy that did the original research on that and did the original analysis of all of the data. I had him come on the show. It was fascinating. Fascinating look. But
I think so I have a few thoughts on some of the things that you're saying. First of all, you really cannot blame people for feeling that way. I completely understand it. I feel that way sometimes. And every day is just, having to look at all of this stuff that's going on. I think it's a positive step for people to be generally distrusting of everything that's being thrown at them. I think that is actually a positive step versus people blindly believing like, oh, I saw this on TV, therefore it must be true. Even though that still happens, the more we have people knowing that they have to be critical thinkers and exercise some kind of analysis, whatever they're being told by whatever side, is a positive step. The thing about Gen Z men in particular not finding resonance with any political issue, I think this is where there's work that has to be done to, I have a lot of friends who are like, I hate politics. I don't want to have anything to do with politics. But there's for some reason a disconnect between, quote unquote politics versus like the things that affect you in your everyday life that actually are very much directly connected to what kind of people we are electing into office, either by voting for or against, or by just staying home. Staying home and not voting is a political action in and of itself. And so, of course, at the basic level, it's taxes. At the basic level, it's the health and well-being of our communities and our schools. A lot of parents and families have been activated over these last few years around the whole, boys playing against girls in girls' sports. And,
you see that there's 2 boxers in the Olympics.
That this morning. Unreal. Exhibit A.
It's just, look, I think...
And anyone who has an open mind can see that insanity for what it is.
I think that it's going to take a little bit of time to overcome the conceptual inertia of there's people that are biologically male competing in female sports. That's strange. Like, oh God, right. Okay. Like actually legislating against this across each different sporting body is going to take a long time, and that's just going to play catch up. But if there was a front line, if there was a vanguard of sports, it would be the ones that involve punching each other in the face.
You would think.
Like that should be, swimming did the thing at 13 years old, whatever it is. median's stage 3. If you get past whatever something of puberty, you can't do it. I'm like, right, okay, well but yes, good to get all sports on board with that.
Yeah.
But let's prioritize the one where you punch each other with your hands.
Yeah.
Like that seems like, and these two athletes failed gender tests, I think it was called, or sex tests, only within the last couple of years. And then because the IOC don't abide by the same type of testing protocol or the same procedures, I saw one of them fuck up a girl earlier on today.
Yeah. And something like that, especially, in this age of even the corporate cancel culture, something like that will only change if enough people actually speak up and criticize it and call it out for what it is and how dangerous it actually is.
Mm-hmm.
I think the change that we saw in swimming happened specifically because of that. There were female swimmers who were the tip of the spear and who are the tip of the spear in actually vocalizing it in order to force that change.
Traveling should be about the journey, not the chaos of packing, which is why I am a massive fan of Nomadic. They make the best luggage that I have ever found. Their backpack and their carry-on pro have genuinely made the travel process 5 times easier. They've got compartments for everything, your laptop, your shoes, your sunglasses. It is so well organized that even your toothbrush will feel important. It's like the Marie Kondo of luggage. Everything has its place. Best of all, their products will literally last you a lifetime with their lifetime guarantee. I'm in love with this thing. I use it every single day. If you've seen me scooting around Austin, this is what will be on my back. And they've got a lifetime guarantee. So this is the final backpack that you will ever need to buy. And you can exchange or return any product within 30 days for any reason. You can get a 20% discount off everything site-wide by going to the link in the show notes below or heading to nomadic.com/modern wisdom. That's nomadic.com/modern wisdom. Talk to me about this. Speaking of media and kind of the pace that all of this stuff moves at, talk to me about this TikTok bill.
At its core, it was being sold as a lot of things. Obviously, it passed the House and the Senate with bipartisan support. It's been signed into law by President Biden. So it is now law of the land. At its core, the thing that you would have only heard people like Ron Paul say, or Thomas Massie in the House of Representatives, or Rand Paul in the U.S. Senate, is actually something that even the ACLU was focused on, which is at its core, it is an anti-free speech bill. And anytime you give the government the power, in this case, the president of the United States, the power to decide what platform you and I are allowed to both exercise our right to free speech on, and what platforms we are allowed to gather information from, at its core, that's a violation of free speech. The other issue that was tied to the usual, usually the most egregious violations of our liberties occur in the name of national security, keeping us safe.
Patriots Act types.
Correct. And this was no different. And Ron Paul, as usual, was very powerful and very correct on this, and his statement that this was the most egregious violation of civil liberties since the Patriot Act was passed. But basically, in a nutshell, again, I didn't hear the proponents for this legislation naturally didn't highlight this provision that was in the bill. It's a very small provision, but it basically says that the president of the United States alone has the power to designate a firm or a business as being, and this is not the exact verbiage, but basically an agent of a foreign adversary, period. And while there are a few different examples of countries that they are calling out as foreign adversaries, in theory, let's say President Biden is there, Elon Musk and X are the only platform that are not playing ball with the White House and taking their direction on who they want censored or what words or phrases or narratives they want censored. in theory, let's say President Biden says, okay, well, Elon Musk is doing business with this country that we deem as a foreign adversary and has, I think, I don't know what the percentage of the business interest was, but it was a quite low bar. And therefore, his platform needs to be shut down because I, as president, deem his association, I deem him to be an agent of a foreign adversary, period. There's no, well, like there's no way to appeal that. There's no, there's no recourse from that for a guy like Elon Musk, for example. And obviously he's the most prominent example now, and something that he even spoke out about in warning about the consequences of this legislation. Those are the two primary major problems with that legislation that, again, go back to the fundamentals and the foundations. And very often it's like, oh, well, we need to protect kids, or we need to protect people from disinformation. We need to protect our security, and all of these arguments that were at the forefront of those who were proponents of this bill, again, from both sides. But, even those who had good intentions, if you're not making those decisions that are rooted in these fundamental freedoms that make us who we are in this country, and that are the pillars of the founding of our country, this is how we continually find ourselves in positions, just as with the Patriot Act. Again, many people with good intentions voted for that, but we find ourselves in these situations where increasingly our freedoms and liberties are taken away, and very often in the name of, well, we have to do this to protect you, that we find ourselves in a place where we are not in the free country that we thought we had.
TikTok's very dangerous, I think, and a lot of people have problems with it. I'm not a fan of it. I think that it's almost certainly trying to craft a narrative that makes people in the West hate the West. I know that there is a Chinese sort of kale version of it that's restricted at certain times, and the sort of stuff that's pushed through the algorithm isn't shown in the same kind of a way. So given the fact that you're stuck between a rock and a hard place, which is we have foreign power that definitely does not have the West's interests at heart, owning the fastest growing social media, which most young people use and get their news from and get their insights from, and all of the rest of it, data, facial mapping, micro expression detection to really, really ramp up the limbic hijack of how this algorithm works. You have all of that, which presumably you're not that much of a fan of, like in and of itself, even though you might support it principally. And then you have the other side, which is this bill, which contravenes and sets precedents that you're worried about. What do you like?
I choose freedom. Because then where do you draw the line? If you have a government that says you are only allowed to get information from these sources and not any other sources, then they are taking away our free will and our own faculty to get information for ourselves and make decisions for ourselves. So in this, this environment of information warfare, the answer is to, speech in situations that you don't like is always more speech.
It seems
anytime, because, okay, well, today they're talking about TikTok in China. What is it going to be tomorrow? What country or what entity or what platform or what business is it going to be tomorrow?
I understand how it's a difficult precedent. I think that we have such a unique pipeline at the moment of saying that, countering bad speech with good speech is a good idea. But when particular types of speech get algorithmically suppressed, that leads to a world in which the good speech is essentially non-existent speech.
Which again goes back to, okay, so we have X as the one social media platform that is not playing that game. This legislation has put the power into the hands of the president to essentially be able to take that platform away. So we assume, and this is the danger, and this is the difference between a free society versus an authoritarian society, is when you put this kind of power into the hands of government, you would hope that they would do the right thing. But in every situation that we've seen, there are people in positions of power in our own government here in the United States who choose to do the wrong thing and weaponize those authorities that have been put into law to serve their own political interests, to serve their own financial interests, to serve their own interests of remaining in power, and ultimately in doing so, taking away our freedom.
What would you do? Let's say that this didn't get passed, repealed, whatever. There are a lot of people that have concerns about TikTok, especially parents, and what it's doing to their kids. What would you suggest? Have you got any suggestions? Okay, we don't do this. People do have to, or they're going to be exposed to it. I think that the comparison with X is kind of fair, but on the other side, anybody that's looked at X and looked at TikTok knows one of them is way harder to swipe off, and it's TikTok. It's this permanent, endless feed of stuff, and it's all designed.
And that's where, and this is one where I think there was, and there still is, there should be opportunity to get bipartisan support in dealing with all of these different social media companies that ultimately are all finding ways to profit off of our attention and selling our attention and interest to improve their bottom line. And kids often, and there have been multiple studies done about how this is affecting them. The Social Dilemma documentary was very, very powerful. And so I think there is an opportunity to look there, especially as we look at how these algorithms and these platforms are affecting young people and kids. I don't know what exactly that looks like in the end, but that's a very real conversation I think that can and should be had, both from the standpoint of how this impacts kids, and also just from the standpoint of basic privacy. That if I'm going to go and use a social media platform, I should have the right to know how my information and my attention and the things that I'm choosing to spend time looking at is being monetized, and frankly, like how even an American company is taking that information and selling it to the highest bidder of any other country in the world that may or may not have our nation's best interest at heart.
It's such a difficult one because I really can see both sides. And it seems like I think a lot of people, maybe sort of center right, kind of working class. I don't like what my kids are being fed on this Chinese social media thing. And I also don't like increased state ability to stop me. So they're kind of like,
I know.
Split their brain in half.
But I think, again, this is where also I think it's important to have as a central point of this conversation, especially as it comes to kids, is like government shouldn't be the end all be all answer. And I know there are parents who are working with and some parents are taking action and working with their schools and taking phones away from kids while they're at school. But ultimately it's like, okay, if you're a parent, you've placed this phone into the hands of your child, and there's responsibility that goes with those decisions.
It would be so interesting to see a full phone ban in schools. I know that there's certain schools that are sort of putting that out now, that basically you cross the threshold. Maybe it has to go into a locker, or once you get past a particular threshold or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I'm just so glad.
It would make a huge difference.